The figures in the rain. The rain had been falling for hours, turning the backyard into a slick maze of wet leaves, dark puddles, and soft mud that swallowed every step we took. It was one of those weirdly warm spring nights in York Landing, Manitoba. One of those nights where the air felt thick, heavy, and full of quiet things lying just beyond the treeline. We were kids, stupid and fearless in the way only kids can be. I was 11. My sister Kiana was 10. Our foster brothers Simon and Gage were around the same age. On that Saturday night, the four of us decided to play Manhunt, even though the sky was nearly black and the rain made everything look like a moving shadow. Simon, loud and goofy but easy to scare, begged to be the seeker, and we all agreed. He counted loudly under the porch light while the rest of us scattered into the forest that wrapped around the houses like a dark, breathing wall. The reserve was small, isolated, and surrounded by endless trees. No fences, no neighbors, just the woods. Kiana and I sprinted toward the sandy pit behind the backyard, the place they kept gravel for construction. Rain hammered the surface, turning the sand into pale streaks of mud. It looked strangely alive under the storm clouds. We ducked into a cluster of bushes, crouching low. "He'll never find us here," Kiana whispered, brushing wet hair out of her face. But Simon wasn't the problem. Not that night. Minutes passed. The rain softened into a steady hiss, and the forest around us felt strangely awake. We expected to hear Simon yelling our names, crashing through branches, splashing through puddles. But there was nothing. Just the dripping leaves. Just the wind. Then, somewhere near the neighbor's path, a soft voice drifted through the rain. "Kiana, where are you?" We glanced at each other. Hushed. Uncertain. "That sounds like him," Kiana whispered. It didn't. Not really. It sounded too calm, too steady, and too close, like it was right behind us, but it wasn't. We stayed low, listening. Another voice followed. "Come here." It echoed strangely, like someone copying a voice they'd only heard once. We didn't answer. We didn't move. A moment later, we heard footsteps sloshing through the mud, slow, careful, light, like whatever was moving didn't want to be heard. Kiana grabbed my arm, her nails biting into my skin as she pulled me deeper into the brush. Then, between the trees, two shapes appeared. Silhouettes. Small. Child-sized. Walking side by side in the rain. Kiana and I froze. The figures moved like kids, but not exactly. Too steady. Too in sync. And when the taller one turned its head, its motion was unnaturally smooth, like it pivoted all at once instead of little by little. We didn't breathe. The figure stared into the bushes where we hid, not moving, not blinking. Rain slid down its face, but it didn't seem to mind. The smaller figure lifted its hand slightly, palm facing us, like it was silently beckoning. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. Then, just as quickly, both silhouettes veered sharply to the right, toward the forest trail. Their bodies didn't sway. They didn't crouch or avoid puddles. They just moved. Kiana tugged my sleeve. "Go," she whispered. We ran. We bolted back toward the house, without looking back once. My shoes slipped in the mud, but adrenaline shoved me forward. When we burst through the back door, Gage was already inside. But Simon wasn't. The house felt suddenly too quiet, too still. We called his name, stepping back out into the rain-soaked yard, but before we could search further, we saw him stumbling toward us from the neighbor's path, soaked, trembling, and crying. His first words chilled me. I followed you, but it wasn't you." The voices in the trees. Simon could barely breathe when he reached us. Rainwater dripped from his hair, his jacket, even his eyelashes. His small chest heaved as if he had been running for miles, even though he had only disappeared for a few minutes. Gage knelt beside him, gripping his shoulders. "What happened? Where did you go?" Simon tried to speak, but only choked sobs came out at first. Kiana looked over her shoulder nervously, scanning the dark treeline as if something might follow him out of it. Finally, Simon wiped his face and whispered, "I saw you too. But it wasn't you." The room went silent. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? He swallowed. I saw you walking toward the sandy pit trail. I thought I was catching you. I was gonna jump out and tag you. But when the taller one turned around, it didn't look like. His voice cracked. It didn't have a face. A cold shiver ran up my neck. Gage scoffed, though his voice shook. Don't be stupid, Simon. But Simon wasn't joking. He shook his head violently. It was shaped like you. Same clothes. Same height. But its face was just dark. Like a shadow. And when it looked at me, I heard something in my head. I heard you calling my name. Kiana's hand gripped mine tighter. I exchanged a look with her. We hadn't called for him. Not once. Simon continued, voice trembling. The two figures started walking away, into the trees. So I followed them. I thought, I don't know, maybe you needed help. But when I got closer, they didn't sound right. They didn't move right. A flash of lightning illuminated the yard for a brief second. Simon flinched at the window. What do you mean they didn't move right? I asked. They didn't make noise, he whispered. No footsteps. No splashing. And when the tall one ducked under a tree branch, its whole body lowered at the same time. Like it bent all the wrong ways. Like it wasn't human. Gage's expression lost its cockiness. Simon went on quietly. Then I heard your voices again, but from behind me. We all froze. Simon hugged himself, shivering. That's when I ducked down. I didn't want the figures to see me. I hid in the grass. And the tall one turned its head, his words dimmed to a whisper. It knew I wasn't who it thought I was. It looked for me. It started turning around slowly, like it was listening. A lump formed in my throat. Then I heard your voices, telling me to come back. But they didn't sound right either. They sounded wrong. Too slow. Like someone copying how you talk. Kiana's breath hitched. Simon's voice trembled. And then the figure stepped toward me. And I ran. I ran as fast as I could, but I swear, he looked at all of us with wide, terrified eyes. I swear the tall one followed. I could hear it in the trees. But not walking. Not running. Just moving. We didn't speak for a long moment. Outside, the rain fell harder, drumming softly against the roof. Somewhere in the distance, a branch cracked. Gage finally swallowed, voice small. We should tell your mom. We did, I said quietly. They won't believe us. Simon nodded. I know what I saw. The four of us sat there trembling, huddled close together in the warm living room while the storm raged outside. But even inside the house, even with the lights on and the door locked, I couldn't shake the feeling that something from the woods was still out there. Watching. Listening. Waiting. And every few minutes, Simon would look toward the back window, as if expecting the faceless figure to step out of the darkness and walk up to the glass. Promise me, he whispered suddenly, voice breaking. Promise me you won't go into the woods at night anymore. I didn't have to think. I promise. But even now, years later, I still wonder what would have happened if Simon hadn't run. What would have happened if he had followed those figures deeper into the trees? And what those things were if they weren't us? What followed us home? For nights after Simon's encounter, none of us slept properly. Every creak, every gust of wind, every shifting shadow outside the window felt like a warning. York Landing was a small place, but the forest made it feel endless, like anything could be watching from between the trees. Days passed, and Simon still refused to go outside after dark. He stuck close to the house, always checking the backyard through the blinds. Gage teased him once, but even he wasn't acting like his usual self. He kept the hallway light on at night and double-checked the locks before bed. The uneasiness didn't fade. If anything, it grew. One evening, about a week later, my sister and I were watching TV when we heard something, a soft, rhythmic tapping coming from the backyard window. Tap, tap, tap. We froze. My first instinct was to call for our foster mom, but something held me in place. Kiana's eyes widened and she whispered, Please tell me that's just the branches. It wasn't windy. There were no trees near that window. The tapping came again, faster this time, like impatient fingers. Tap, 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 tap. Before either of us could move, Simon sprinted into the room. "Don't look outside," he whispered sharply, panicked. "Why?" Kiana whispered. His face was pale. "I saw something out there." My heart dropped. "What did you see?" Simon swallowed hard. "Something that looked like you." He pointed at Kiana. "And you."
He pointed at me.
But wrong. We all turned slowly toward the dark window. The curtains were closed, but the tapping had stopped. Silence pressed against the house like a physical weight. I forced my voice to stay steady. "What did it look like?" Simon's voice was small. "It was standing near the shed. At first I thought it was you too, but the faces were gone again, and the bodies were moving weird, like they were trying to learn how to stand." A chill snaked through me. We backed away from the window. Gage came into the room next, annoyed. "What are you guys freaking out about?" He stopped mid-sentence. A faint voice drifted from outside. A whisper. A call. "Simon." It sounded like Kiana. Exactly like her. Kiana slapped her hand over her mouth to keep from screaming. Gage backed up so fast he tripped over a pair of shoes. Simon shook his head violently. "That's not her. That's not her." The voice shifted, now mimicking me. "Come outside." Then another version of my voice layered over it. And another. Overlapping. Out of sync. Like something trying too hard to sound human. We all bolted into the hallway. Our foster mom came rushing out of her room, furious. "What is going on?" We babbled over one another, trying to explain, but she didn't understand, or didn't want to. She went to the back door, unlocked it, and stepped outside before we could stop her. We huddled together, listening. Nothing. Just the rain dripping from the eaves. Then her voice called out from the yard. "There's nothing here." But something felt wrong about the way she said it. Too flat. Too stiff. As if the words were placed in her mouth, not spoken. She came back inside a moment later, brushing raindrops from her hair. She locked the door again and said, "Go to bed.
Now."
And something inside me whispered, "That's not her." Her eyes weren't right. Her expression wasn't right. She walked past us without even looking, like she wasn't sure how. That night, none of us slept. And we weren't sure if the woman in the house was really the one who stepped outside, or something that followed her back in. Years later, I look back and wonder what would have happened if we'd opened the door first. If Simon hadn't run. If that thing had gotten closer. Sometimes, when I visit the reserve, I swear I still hear voices near the tree line.
Soft.
Familiar. Calling my name. And I never answer.